And Bull, yesterday the Guardians game did not go according to plan. They lost 10-1. Austin Hedges was their best pitcher in the game. So I want to ask you three out here.
And Austin Hedges is a better pitcher than a hitter. Let's admit that right now.
We'll end the discussion on that
with
little
a 70-mile-an-hour fastball.
But with teams unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely to make a ton of moves prior to the day or two ahead of the trade deadline, for the next 2.5 weeks, what can the Guardians do to try and salvage their rotation? Because it doesn't appear Spencer Howard's the answer.
Man, as you kind of like transition into that comment, I'm still thinking about what Tim said. He said, I'm a little alarmed. The Guardians need arms, but everybody's in the race, and those teams have better resources. So if right now we're in first place, but we still need an arm. We're sliding a little bit. The Twins is getting better. It cut the lead to 4.5. If it's down between the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Orioles, and the Guardians don't have the same ammunition in the farm system, and they may not be willing to give up the said prospects to get a top-notch arm.
I mean, listen, that happens every year. There's always teams that have better farm system than others. The Yankees' farm system is not very good. The Dodgers and the Orioles do have a better farm system than the Guardians. We don't know what they're willing to give up either.
I would assume that they'd be willing to give up more than the Guardians, because the Guardians are a young team still. They need those prospects to kind of keep churning the system.
Maybe so, but that's only an excuse for losing out on maybe the best pitcher on the market. Mm-hmm. And if they can't get the best pitcher because the Orioles offer a better deal, well, I'm not going to kill the front office for that. There's no excuse not to get pitchers. None. It doesn't have to be the best pitcher. Yes, you want to get a great pitcher, but at the very least, and Tim agreed, he said, hey, there's guys. He mentioned Chris Bassett of Toronto. He mentioned, who did he mention before that? I can't remember. He mentioned another guy who did he mention before Bassett? Do you remember?
Fetty.
Yeah. Like, if the Guardians got Fetty and Bassett, that's a huge upgrade. Those guys, like, Chris Bassett's a really good pitcher. He's not going to cost a ton in terms of prospects. The Yankees and Dodgers, yes, these other teams need pitchers too. But they're not going to get every pitcher. Right now, there's a handful of pitchers that are available. By the time we get closer to the deadline, there'll be more teams that will be sellers. There'll be teams that will decide, hey, we're out of it. That opens the gate. The Yankees are going to trade for one pitcher maybe. They're not trading for multiple pitchers. The Dodgers, I don't know. The Dodgers got their whole pitching staff on the injured list. So they might. The Orioles will trade for a pitcher, certainly. There's still plenty of pitchers out there to get. So this is not an excuse. The Guardians have to do something. Now, the idea that there's going to be no trades until the day or two before is not true. The closer you get to the deadline, the more action that happens. We see this every year. We see it in football to a lesser degree. You see it in basketball at the trade deadline. There's more trades the day before the deadline than there is a week before the deadline. There'll be some things. Now, right now, you're not going to see anything because the teams are focused on the draft. That's a dynamic in baseball that you don't have in any other sport. The draft is Sunday, first round. It ends on Tuesday. So right now, my guess is most teams are putting their trade talk on hold for 4 or 5 days to deal solely with the draft for the next few days. But after that, like once the draft is over on Tuesday and the All-Star game's over on Tuesday, starting Wednesday, things are going to ramp up in terms of the trade deadline.
See, it's crazy because I never considered that the Orioles were going to be making a move.
They should. If I'm an Orioles fan, I'm going to be pissed if they don't.
Because the Orioles, to me, I look at the Orioles as the direct competition to the Guardians.
They are.
You're going to have to either beat the Orioles or the Yankees, right?
Probably.
And if they already started with a better pitching rotation than you have.
Not much better.
Not much better. Yeah. But if they got the ability to go out and get a top name that puts them head and shoulders above the rest, and we can only go out and do innings eaters, I'm going to have to give those two the edge in the playoffs.
Go ahead, Earl.
Didn't they being the Baltimore Orioles, didn't they get smoked by the Oakland A's like a couple games ago? Who was the team
Cubs
they played?
Just swept them.
They've been shut out 2 games in a row.
It was like
now.
They gave up like 19 runs or something like that. Yeah. And so like they clearly need pitching as well. I think that they're going to be in direct competition as well. I'm with you. Even if you don't get the top echelon guy that's up there or on the trade market, you better come away with a guy that's in that top 6 or 7. And if you can get 2 guys that's up there like that, then you need to go do it. This team is damn good, and there's no excuse to utilize some of the resources that you do have to address the situation that we have. You've seen the upcoming schedule. You got San Diego, you got a series against San Diego, and you got a series against Philadelphia. Both those teams can hit, and hit damn good.
Yeah.
And so to see how we're going to navigate through these next couple weeks is going to be pretty interesting. You know, we tried what we tried yesterday with Howard. That didn't work. Our bullpen is damn good, but you don't want to wear them out because you're going to need them as we get later on in the season. Stephen Vogt is going to have an interesting challenge on his hand on how he pieced together, this rotation going forward. And we better hope that Bob get his stuff together and Gavin Williams can build off that second start he had.
Yeah, and to answer Mike's question specifically, which you alluded to there, in terms of what you're going to do between now and when they potentially get some help, you're going to do kind of what you've been doing. They'll probably bring Logan Allen back after the All-Star break. I would think they'll call him back up, and he'll make 1 or 2 starts. Obviously, he's been inconsistent. There's no easy answer within the organization. Now, let me just address this Spencer Howard thing, because I've seen a lot of fans make a big deal about this. First of all, when he left, the game was only 4-1. They've come back from 3-run games many times. The bullpen, the guys they used out of the bullpen yesterday did not pitch well. They used their key guys, obviously, because they were down 4-1. So it wasn't just because of him. I mean, they were only down 3 runs when he left the game. Number 2, I saw so many people on Twitter, alleged fans, saying, "Oh, the Guardians, they can't be serious pitching the guy. What are they doing?" First of all, it's not ideal. I get it. And the Guardians have put themselves in this position by not having good depth in the rotation, and injuries and ineffectiveness has led to this. But guys like this who bounce around as journeymen, this guy was at one point was a big prospect. This guy, every team has a couple of starts a year where they have to throw a guy who you're holding your breath, hoping he doesn't screw it up. I thought it would be ugly yesterday. I said it on the show. It turned out to be ugly. But let's not make it as if the Guardians are the only team that do this. Every team, including big market teams, do this. They have a bullpen game. It happens sometimes. Now, the reason it's more noticeable with the Guardians is because overall their starting pitching's been bad. Mm-hmm. Even Bybee's last 2 starts were not great, although I thought he did a good job bouncing back and getting through 7 the other day. When he didn't have his best stuff, I thought he showed a little toughness there. And Ben Lively's coming off a bad start, so you're nervous about him. But right now, the hope is that Bybee, Williams, and Lively can pitch well for the next few weeks. You need them to pitch all the rest of the season. And they're going to need some reinforcements. I don't think it's that big a deal that he made this 1 start. They didn't necessarily lose the game because of that only. They didn't hit. The Tigers did. But they're going to need reinforcements. And I think killing the organization right now is unfair. If they... Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. If they don't add starting pitching, I will lead the way for crushing the team. But I'm not going to do that, when we still got a couple of weeks before the deadline.
I don't look at, just from playing, I don't look at baseball games game to game. It's like, you
can't look at it like football.
No, it's like, okay, I look at it in like groups of like, okay, you have a series against this team, this team, this team. What did you win 2 out of 3 series, or what's the overall arching theme? Like, I don't even get alarmed when somebody has a bad outing. Like, they can have a bad outing and then they can come back and have 2 good outings.
Right.
Logan Allen can, he's only a couple of good outings away from people saying, Nuggets being like, how good do you feel about Logan Allen?
Right, exactly.
You're like,
That's true.
all right, yeah, he did good. He's back at it.
Yeah.
I don't think they can do anything. They're just going to keep throwing the guys they got out there and hope they pitch better.
I think on the flip side to what Bull said about the fans, feeling like the sky is falling right now, I think it's kind of interesting to see people care, right? Because when the season started, especially all the casual guys, we had little to no expectations that the Guardians will be good.
Right.
And so to see the fans really invested and critiquing this team and care so much in July, I'm with you. Right, we got a long way to go. The sky is not falling. I think eventually, when it's all said and done and the dust settle, everything will be okay.
Yeah.
But I do find it very interesting to see the city involved, the fans involved, and really interested, hanging on every move, every win, every loss. Yeah. And I think that, the Howard thing where people went crazy on social media, I think it's coupled with the fact that the Guardians been playing about 500 baseball over the last 10, 11 games.
Yeah, well,
so people's just pissed.
No, I get it. And yes, with added interest comes, in the WNBA right now. There's a lot of diehard people that have covered the WNBA and watch that are frustrated by all the stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing. It's like, I've been here for the Guardians since I moved to Cleveland in 2011, and all these casual fans are like, they're geniuses now about the team. And so, knuckleheads like me get frustrated by that situation. But really, it's a good thing. You're right, 100% right. It is great that so many people care right now. I was just saying today to Zach Meisel when we were doing the Guardian show, or before we started the Guardian show, I said, we have talked so much baseball and so much Guardians on the main show. I feel like in Cleveland, because the two radio stations that talk sports generally don't talk much baseball, and when they do, not in an educated way. I feel like we are the market for baseball. Obviously, we're already the market for the Browns, but I feel like we do a better job covering the Guardians than any other entity in town. And I was excited about that, how much we've talked about the Guardians. But a big part of the reason is because they've been so good and there has been interest. If we're being totally honest, the first year of this show, when we would talk about the Guardians, the numbers would go away. People would stop
They'd be like,
watching.
I gotta go.
And that's not happening
But
anymore.
if we're being even more honest, this panel that's currently constructed today was the Guardians post-game show panel 2 years ago when they made the playoffs.
That's right.
I can look at myself and see how much more educated I've become about the Guardians, the sport overall, how much more vested I am in the team from then until now. And so you're absolutely right. The interest is there. And that's the one thing about this city that I always love. You give us a quality product to root for, we're going to show up and show out. Now, when it comes to the Browns, we don't give a damn what the Browns do. We're going to show up and show out regardless. That's just what it is. Even if they 0-16, we pulling up. So
now you said about the 500. For me, it's a little...
It's actually worse than that. They've lost 9 of 15 here.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of people that are like, these guys, there are certain people that are underachieving. We talked about them hitting the ball, but we've seen the Freemans fall off a little bit.
Yeah, Fry.
Fry has come down to earth.
Yeah.
Jimenez has not hit the ball well this year pretty much at all. Like you look at it, it's that thing in the back of your head, like, okay, now is we seeing the real Guardians, or we just seeing, did they get off to a nice little start?
Yeah, that's fair, but funny thing is, the Orioles and Yankees, the two other best teams in the American League, they're also playing poorly. They've been playing poorly longer, especially the Yankees, and the Guardians still have the best record. Speaking of which, Mike, go ahead.